Hey guys, welcome to another review. Today we have an astronaut rig that is actually, I guess, in another planet, jumping rocks. It's a really good effort, but there's a few things that can be done better, and I'm gonna show you what those are next. Let's do it. This piece here, animation piece, is by Heron. He already submitted it a few times on our feedback channel on my Discord. Go and check it out if you haven't joined yet. But he already submitted a few times. The community, as always, being amazingly beautiful, already gave him some feedback. He already implemented that feedback. This piece is looking really good. So he's been going through a few iterations, but there's a few things that can be done better. So 10 minutes on the clock. I'm going to do it on my watch right now because I changed the computer, and we're going to get going. So I'm going to play it a few times and then give you some feedback. So, Heron, I think that your piece overall has a lot of potential and is really cool. And I think what you've done here kind of shows a lot of promise, I should say. And also the feedback that you listened to, what the community gave you, is actually been spot on. It's actually much better in comparison to before. Now, there's a few things that I think you are missing that you need to add to this, right? So, obviously you are actually going like basically walking through like a small little stone. You don't know if it's going to break, if it's not going to break or anything like that, and then you jump from one side to the other. So you might have seen some of the other reviews, but I'm going to repeat a little bit here what I've said on previous ones. You really need to get yourself into the character's mind and put yourself in the situation that they are and how scary it might be or how exciting it might be, whatever it is. You need to actually put yourself in their shoes. So what I'm thinking here is this. They are in probably a desolate planet that they don't know, right? So the fact that they're actually walking through like this tiny stone and they are not too sure exactly where they're going, to me means that you're kind of losing a little bit of like the setup they could be giving to this piece. And by setup, I mean, if I was walking in a little stone that I don't know on a planet that is unknown as well, most likely before I start going forward and stepping into it, maybe when you give that step, you want to make sure that this is actually something that you can definitely put your weight on, right? So you're kind of missing a little bit of the acting there. So maybe kind of like have the foot just like tapping a little bit to see if it's actually strong. You know, people do this in ice sometimes if the ice is thick enough. Same thing here, right? So maybe use that as an opportunity for acting. Same thing here, like before you start, I really think that you should have a moment where you actually give the character some thinking time. And the reason why is because if you were to put this in your show reel and she just starts walking with no anticipation or with no setup, it's going to look slightly odd. So maybe here, because she's already kind of balancing, maybe she goes from here to balance to then walk, right? So if you can do those things, that would actually at least give the audience, people watching your show reel, some time to actually know exactly what's going on. And then make sure that you actually add a little bit of acting here while she's actually trying to kind of like be sure-footed before she jumps, right? And then it's the same thing here, like whenever she goes one step forward, you probably most likely are still unsure that this can hold your weight. So you probably be looking down to the thing and just go, okay, is this fine? Okay, it's fine. So you look down, make sure it's fine. When you know it's fine, that's the point that you look forward, right? To see where you're going. So like tap, look down, see if it's strong enough, then look forward and then jump. Because if you actually do that look down around here, right? And then you look forward, what you're actually saying to the audience is that she's thinking about something first, which is making sure that everything is fine, and then when as soon as she looks forward, the audience, people looking at this, will automatically think that the next step is going to be to jump. You already got to that conclusion and as an audience, because you can see that there is 2 platforms here, but you don't know what's going to happen, right? So what the character is doing all the time is informing the audience of what's about to happen. So having that look, it means that I'm about to do something, and that something probably is going to be a jump, right? And then at that point, you can jump forward. When you jump forward, the mechanic is correct, but I think you actually are curving the character slightly too much and looking down slightly too much. Because this is such a perilous jump, most likely she will probably keep her eye on the place where she needs to go. Probably most of the time she'll probably maybe look a little bit down with the eyes, but then she'll probably just be like focused on where she needs to go, right? So she goes down, she'll be like, and then she'll just see where she needs to go, because if she actually loses track of where she needs to go, she's most likely going to fall. And at this point, it feels like she doesn't even know where that is, and she's just jumping and then hoping for the best, right? So that tracking needs to happen throughout the whole animation. So she's tracking here, the object, and then she keeps on tracking as she goes and jumps, right? And she's always looking to where she needs to go as she is actually kind of like traversing this bit, right? And then the fall is going to be very much of you again trying to get away from this edge as quick as you possibly can, because you don't know if this is strong enough. You've checked this one, so this one is, yep, it's good, but this one you're not too sure if it's going to hold you or not. So it's not only about the jump, but it's also about the uncertainty of actually getting this to hold you. So you need to sell that some way, somehow. Most likely, basically keeping yourself in this position for as little as possible, so you can quickly go into sure footing over here. So this is really good. And then here at the end, you're definitely missing an acting piece. So at the moment you're looking at your clock, or your watch, sorry, I should say. But instead of doing that, perhaps because you made it and it was so close because you didn't know if this is going to be okay, then maybe as soon as you do that, maybe turn around and then look at this bit, right? And then at that point, maybe you can feel a little relieved. So you need to add a little bit of acting in the end. And then last but not least, because I think I still have a few minutes, is that you need to, I have a feeling, and once again, I don't know this, and definitely hit me up on Discord if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that when you've animated this, you probably got a reference from somewhere, or you didn't get a reference and you just went through the body mechanics as you go through it. So as I say here pretty much every single week, make sure you get a reference, right? Even if you actually find somebody else, like a movie or a YouTube clip that somebody's doing this move that looks really cool and you want to copy it one-to-one, and that's cool, but you doing it yourself with different camera angles, so you can do like one front, one side, or one back, one side, something like that, will allow you to study the mechanics more, right? Because you're doing exactly what you want to see in the final animation. And if you put 2 chairs together, like at pretty much the same distance that you have on your shot, and you jump from one chair to the other, I'm pretty sure if you actually put a camera on the side, you'll be able to see what your body is doing, what your legs are doing, what your hips are doing, how much uncertainty you have, especially if you have 2 chairs that are like not backed by anything. I think you're gonna feel a little bit of what she feels, especially as she actually lands, because you don't know if the chair is gonna move away from the spot or if it's gonna stay on the spot. And if the chair moves away, you're gonna fall. So don't do that, be careful. But what I mean is that the thought process of actually being uncertain about something, the outcome of things, is what makes you think and be cautious about it. And this is basically what you need to translate in this shot. So it's not just about the body mechanics, it's about the thought process, about the acting, and making sure that you give the audience enough time for them to process the whole thing as you are working through it, right? So that is basically the thing that you have to do. So take a reference of yourself if you haven't so far, making this move. Definitely add those notes that I mentioned before. Maybe it's a good idea that instead of having her starting here, maybe you can actually make her give a few more steps so she actually kind of like gets to this point. or get the camera to be slightly closer. So she actually kind of starts off camera and then goes in. Because the more space you have between a place of action and also the place where she's coming from, the more time you think to actually basically act what she's thinking, right? And what you want here really is to sell the movement that she's about to do, right? And this might be for games, maybe it's for a film or a cutscene, but either way, having some time for her to think, am I really going to do this? Yes, I'm going to do this. Having that thought process, that change, that will actually make it much more interesting and much more entertaining, right? So that's about it, really. But overall, you have a really good shot. Really cool. I like the rig. The rig looks really amazing, and the thought process and the idea overall works really well. I think it's very creative. You just need to actually add a few more things on top to really take that creativity out and make the most out of it. So timer is done, and so is my review. Now, if you're interested in having one of these reviews, then you can do one of two things. Either join the Discord and definitely share your work. So link down below for you to share my Discord. Plenty of people. We just went past the 700 member mark, which I'm incredibly happy and proud about. We're having a lot of fun. So join, and then hopefully I can pick up on one of your shots as you kind of like start adding and asking for feedback. And I basically pick up on things that I find interesting and things that I think that I can add to, and then I review it here. And then if you are actually stuck right now and you would like to actually have more of a one-on-one review, I have my mentorship also linked down below that you can actually join. And if you join, it's going to be just me and you going through your shot. I can give you some feedback. Obviously, it's going to be more than 10 minutes. It's going to be either an hour if you go for one session, or we can do it over a week or over a month. And this is basically a little snippet of what goes on in that animation mentorship that I have. And I cannot go away without shouting out my Patreon. So everybody that supports me, and if you don't support yet in Patreon, you're missing out. Go and check it out. Lots of perks, lots of good stuff. And that's all I had. Until next week, see you guys and have a great rest of the week. Peace.